Good day, everybody, and welcome to the LSU Women's Basketball Tournament Update from The Advocate and sponsored by Hancock Whitney. I'm Zach Ewing, and with me today is Advocate sports columnist Scott Rabalais. We are here to break down the LSU women's basketball team in the NCAA Tournament. We're going to do this regularly during the Lady Tigers tournament run that hopefully will go all the way to Dallas and the women's Final Four, Scott.
That is the road that they hope to be on. Yes, it's been a great season so far for LSU. 28-2, only one loss in the regular season to South Carolina, who is obviously a huge favorite to win the NCAA title again. But this is when you make your mark. This is when people remember what you did. If you're cutting down nets, either to get to the Final Four or if you can do it in the Final Four. So let's see if the Tigers have what it takes to get there. Coach Mulkey kind of threw a little cold water on that at her press conference Sunday, talking about hey, it would be great if they just got past, get into the second weekend, which they couldn't do last year. But we'll talk about that. But it's here, it's coming up, and the expectations are high. No matter what she says, that they're going to be pretty high for this team, considering the players they have.
Yeah, as LSU fans know, the Lady Tigers were undefeated for much of the season, all the way until Super Bowl Sunday, when they lost to number one South Carolina. There was talk of getting a number one seed. Then there was, it'll be a number two seed. When the bracket came out Sunday night, it was a number three seed. LSU will face number 14 seed Hawaii in their first game. That's Friday afternoon at 4:30 at the PMAC. And then the other two teams in their pod, number 6 seed Michigan, number 11 seed UNLV. UNLV, a very good team, 31-2. I mean, one of these teams, I think they won a game, like you see these high school scores sometimes, 92-27, something like that at one point this year. I mean, just every team is good in the tournament, but this draw does not seem like it did LSU any favors.
Yes, UNLV, I think, has the most wins of any team in the country except for South Carolina, who's 32-0. So it's kind of tough. I mean, that's what you get when you're not the 1 or 2 seed. You have a tougher road. This is the seeding LSU had last year in the tournament. They went 1-1. They come from behind to beat Jackson State, the SWAC champion, in the first round, and then they lost in the second round to Ohio State, who's the 6th seed out of the Big Ten, just like Michigan is. But I have to take a little issue with the selection committee and where they put LSU. Obviously, a lot of people can say this or that. LSU is still number 3 in the net. You have a team, Virginia Tech, who's a 1 seed, who was 9 in the net. And I know everyone's talked at length, and it's true, but LSU's lack of competition in the non-conference schedule. Kim Mulkey said she didn't know what kind of team she was going to have this year before she got players like Angel Reese to transfer in, and LaDasia Williams and Jasmine Carson, Terry Poole from Ohio State, who beat LSU last year in the PMAC. And so they didn't schedule anybody very good in the non-conference, and the SEC was a little bit down. The SEC is still 3 in the net as a conference, and they got 7 teams in the tournament. It's not like they were it's not like it was just, they were 10th, the 10th best conference. So I think LSU should have been a 2 seed based on their whole body of work. They were, I saw like power ratings the ESPN had them like 7th. I think that was fair. Be like the second from the bottom 2 seed. But this is where they are. This is where they start, and you're gonna have to play tough teams along the way. So we'll see how that comes out. But I thought, my thinking is why do you have the net rankings if you're really gonna ignore them so much, with LSU the number 3 team being a 3rd seed, and Virginia Tech, a 9-rated team, being number 1 seed.
You mentioned Kim Mulkey threw cold water on the idea of a Final Four run, trying to slow the roll of the fan base, so to speak. Is that just a game she's playing to lower expectations? Do you really get the sense around LSU that they don't know what their capabilities are in this tournament? If you look down the road, that Maryland is the number 2 seed, Indiana the number 1 seed in their region. It doesn't seem like an undoable thing to make it to the Final Four, but it's interesting to hear Kim Mulkey, usually so brash and confident, kind of take a step back.
Yeah, actually, Utah's the number 2 seed.
I apologize. Utah.
They're on the same side of the bracket. They're in Maryland's the 2 seed in the Greenville Regional, and we need to talk about that a little bit later. There's only 2 regional sites. But, she came in last year, and obviously, her resume speaks for herself. She has won literally at every level she's played at. When she was in high school at Hammond High, they won 4 straight state titles. When she was at Louisiana Tech, They won 2 national championships, and they were in the Final Four her other 2 years. At Baylor, she won a national title as an assistant coach. At Baylor, she won 3 national titles. So the expectations were high. And she came in her introductory press conference, I'll never forget it, pointing to the 5 Final Four banners that LSU has from the Simone Augustus Sylvia Fowles era, saying, none of those are national championship banners. And, that's what I came here to do. But she wants it to be somewhat slower expectations to start with. She said last year, hey, if we win one more game than they won the year before, which was 9, that would be an achievement. Well, they won 26. Hey, if they get, and this year her story is, have they improved a little bit in the regular season? Yes, they won 28 games. They won a game in the SEC tournament. They were 1 and done last year. They were 1-1 in the NCAA tournament. The goal is to be just a little bit better. And then she said, you get to the Sweet 16 and you see how it goes. So I think that's going to fall on deaf ears a little bit because of who she is, because you have an All-American playing forward like Angel Reese, who obviously has not just played great, but captured the imagination of a lot of fans all over the country, not just LSU fans. So I think there'll be disappointment, certainly a great disappointment if they don't get out of the Baton Rouge, part of the bracket this year like they did in last year. And if they fall short, if they make it to like the Elite Eight, I think that would be a great achievement. And if the Sweet 16 would be a very good achievement, but they need to get to the second weekend at least. And I think she knows that. So in that regard, there's a little pressure there, I think, that maybe wasn't quite there last year for this team.
We will have more of these LSU women's basketball updates throughout the week and talk more about the matchup with the Hawaii Rainbow Wahine, the Michigan UNLV matchup, and more. But before we go on this day, Scott, what are your impressions of the tournament draw as a whole? And you mentioned the changes this year. It's an expanded field, 68 teams in the women's tournament, just like the men's, but just 2 regional sites instead of the 4 that we're used to. That's right.
The number 1 seeds are South Carolina, Stanford, Indiana had a great year out of the Big Ten, who's the number 1 seed in LSU's regional, and then Virginia Tech, who I mentioned, I think is dubious as a number 1 seed. But the women's committee is always a little more unpredictable than the men's. I thought Tennessee squeaked in thanks to being LSU probably, and got in the SEC tournament, got to host. So they got a better chance to make it to the Sweet 16 than they would have, say when they lost to LSU in the regular season. A little confusing, and I've tried to mention this every time I've written something or been somewhere on a show or something like that. People are saying, well, LSU's in Greenville, in the Greenville regional, and so South Carolina. Would they have to play South Carolina? No, the NCAA only has, starting this year, they only have 2 regional sites. So you can have 2 regionals in one, basically, in Greenville, South Carolina, and in Seattle. And then 2 teams from each city will advance to the Final Four in Dallas. So as the bracket lays out, LSU and South Carolina would not play till the national championship game. So there's that. It's going to be a little confusing for people. Teams from Baton Rouge will play on Friday and the Friday and Sunday, and they'll play opposite days to teams from like Columbia, South Carolina. So that's a little bit confusing. I'm impressed that that Hawaii's nickname is the Rainbow Wahine, not the Rainbow Warriors. The women have a slightly different nickname than the men's teams. Very good, Zach. Very
I am an encyclopedia of sports knowledge. My wife will tell you that. In fact, she'll do it with a derisive smile on her face, but she will tell you that. He's Scott Rabalais. I'm Zach Ewing. This has been the LSU Women's Basketball Tournament Update from The Advocate and sponsored by Hancock Whitney. We'll be back with you on Wednesday. We're counting down to Friday, 4:30, LSU versus Hawaii in the first round of the Women's NCAA Tournament. March Madness is here. It's a great time of year, everybody. And for Scott, our producer, Patrick McGee, I'm Zach, and we'll see you next time.